Captain America the Winter Soldier was a huge success this weekend. It made almost $100 million at the US box office alone, and I'm here to talk about it spoiler-filled. So if you have not seen Captain America, you can check out my spoiler-free review that is on my channel right now, because we're going to talk in depth. We're going to get analytical here. We're going to talk about metaphors and hidden meanings, because yes, there's actually some of those in this Marvel comic book superhero film. There's a lot of awesome stuff to talk about that I wanted to talk about in my original video, but I couldn't because I didn't want to spoil it for you guys. I wanted you guys to go in there and have the best experience possible. So now we get to do that. But really quick, I got a couple cool things to tell you. First, I actually had a chance to be interviewed at the Captain America screening by Cleveland.com. There's a video of myself and some other fans who got all dressed up at the premiere to see it. It's over at Cleveland.com. I left a link for that in the description below if you want to check that out. By far the biggest comment I've gotten is that I look absurdly tall in this video, and I do, because the reporter was a very nice lady who happened to be much shorter than me. I am 6'4". A lot of people were like, what are you, like 7 foot? But no, I'm 6'4". I'm not a giant. I guess I am a giant. I'm basically as tall as Liam Neeson and Conan O'Brien even. And Jeff Goldblum, by the way, I believe is 6'4". Good company. And also, my Audible promotion is still running, and I wanted to tell you guys about that really quick because I really love giving back to you guys. I've been looking for ways to give you guys free stuff because you've given me so much. I have so much fun talking to you guys about movies, and Audible.com likes what I'm doing here. They're supporting me, and through them, I can offer you guys a free audiobook of your choice. You can download anything you want. It's got the new Dr. Sleep by Stephen King, the sequel to The Shining, which is narrated by Will Patton, which is awesome because The Shining is a classic book and a classic movie, and it's so cool to see him do more of that. That link is audible.com/Chris, audible.com/Chris. Just wanted to tell you guys about that because it's still going on. It's going to be going on all through the spring and summer. I can give you guys awesome free stuff, and I'm going to continue to try to find ways in which I can run promotions like that to give you guys awesome free stuff. So be sure to check those out. They are in the description, and I hope you do check that out. Alright, Captain America the Winter Soldier. This movie blew me away. I was so impressed with this film. I could not believe the levels it went to. A lot of people have messaged me saying they thought it was overrated and they thought that I gave it too high of a grade and that other people are praising it and they just like all Marvel movies because they're big superhero stuff. But I gotta say, I really feel like this movie went in different places that the other Marvel films didn't. It felt very grounded for a Marvel film. A lot of things happen in this movie where you're like, what are they going to do now? Like, S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone. What's going to happen to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show? Is that just going to end? I'm guessing maybe they'll be in hiding or something, or they'll have to do things covertly. I don't know. Now, I got to see this movie at a marathon. I saw the first Captain America film first, and then the second one right after that. Seeing them both back to back, I noticed so many things about them. For one, the second one is so much better in like every way. But one of the things about the first one that really struck me was that the first one is very like, excuse my French, America, fuck yeah, we're awesome, patriotism, we're so cool, we're the best, and I love America, and woo, yeah, all that stuff. The second one was like the dark side of patriotism. It showed the corruption that sometimes goes on in politics, and Captain's world gets completely turned around, and everything that he thought he was living for his entire life is revealed to be this corrupt organization, and I found that just riveting. It showed the darkness of that. You know, it wasn't just like, yay, America, we're the best people ever on the planet. It was like, actually, no, sometimes some seriously disgusting stuff happens behind the scenes in the world of politics. And that was so great to take the Captain America character in a more dark place, because you think about what are his ideals? Well, America, freedom, protecting the people, the government, and making sure that that all works correctly. But this movie explores all of the ways that those things can go wrong and how it would affect him. In this film, one of the most powerful visual metaphors that I found to be there in a Captain America movie is something that I didn't even notice until I had already seen it twice, and I was driving home and I just went, wait a second. At the end of the movie, Cap's stripes literally get dragged through the wet mud. This film really capitalizes on the fact that there is a lot of nasty stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and Captain America's stripes literally just get completely sullied by it and dirtied by mud, and I found that really powerful. And I don't know if that was the intention of the filmmakers, but to see him all beaten and downtrodden and shot up and stabbed and his suit's all ripped, his eyes all swollen, and he's wet and muddy and everything, just really to me stood out how really bad politics can be sometime and how that world can get so dirty, and I found that extremely powerful. One of the things I loved about this movie was the very beginning when you see Steve's notepad and you see all the things that he hasn't done or that he is thinking of doing or has done. What's interesting is what he has written down is actually different in various countries depending on where you saw the film. In the UK, it has stuff like Sean Connery on there. In the United States, it's got other things too. And in Mexico, there are different things as well. I also like how he has Star Wars crossed off, but not Star Trek. It's like, okay, I've experienced Star Wars, I'll get to Star Trek eventually. And I guess maybe because Disney owns Star Wars now, they're kind of throwing that out there. I don't know. It was kind of a cool little Easter egg. Some of the other Easter eggs I loved in this film was Nick Fury's grave, where it said the path of the righteous man from Ezekiel. That was totally a reference to Pulp Fiction. That was like the best fanboy Pulp Fiction Marvel thing. Like, I never would have thought to go to a Captain America film and somehow fanboy out about Pulp Fiction while fanboying about Captain America. It was perfect. If anything, this movie proves that Captain America is the most badass 95-year-old in history, and we get to see that in action in that amazing opening action scene on the boat. And I know from experience that humongous fans of Captain America absolutely love the portrayal of his physicality in this movie. This is like really the first time we're seeing a truly amazingly awesome badass powerful guy who can just kick guys off boats as he's running. That long tracking shot where he's running down the boat and he smacks a guy over the railing. Oh, that was so beautiful. One of the biggest things I loved about this movie was Nick Fury and the fact that he had so much more to do as a character. His car chase scene was totally awesome, and I loved seeing him have all these backup things that he could do, and he was trying so hard to make sure that he was able to get out of that. But the way he was waiting for like that last second, that was so intense with the musical score and everything, which by the way was a very simple score at times, just a lot of really electronic noises that kind of created a pulsating droning vibe, kind of like Terminator almost, where a lot of that just really worked, especially for that car chase scene, as well as my favorite scene in the film, which is the highway confrontation between the Winter Soldier and Captain America, and that entire sequence in the middle of the movie. That's probably my favorite scene in the movie. I found that scene to be nail biting. Like, my eyes were actually watering from how suspenseful and awesome that action was. It was so well done. And it ended with that great moment where Captain America realizes that the Winter Soldier is Bucky. Now, I gotta say, the reason I didn't say that the Winter Soldier was Bucky in my review, because a lot of people were like, dude, everyone knows who the Winter Soldier. Not true. I saw the movie twice, okay, in theaters. And both times when his mask fell off and he turned around and you saw that it was Bucky, I heard audible gasps throughout the entire theater where people were like, oh my gosh, it's Bucky. Like, a lot of people legitimately did not know that. And that's why I didn't say it in my review. Because I'll always do my best to stray from spoilers unless I warn you ahead of time. But that was just the perfect villain. It was almost like what they did with The Dark Knight, where they saved that really awesome, emotionally powerful villain for the second one in the Joker. In this one, you had Red Skull, and he's very famous and he's awesome, and Hugo Weaving did a really cool job with him, and the skull effects were fantastic. But in the second one, you have this villain that is all of the things that the Red Skull was, except he has this extreme personal connection with Captain America, and that's why this villain works so well. However, I gotta disagree with some of the statements that he didn't really have as much weight as he could have as a character, because of that great scene where Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford, interrogates him about what he knows, and then wipes his memory, and he hits him and everything, and then he just like stares at him with like this really old cracked eyes that Robert Redford has after he hits him. And I found that really intense, and it actually really made me care about the character of Winter Soldier, which is the best way you can create a compelling villain, is if you actually care about that villain. He's not just some really cool guy who goes around killing people. You actually feel like you understand his position in life, and you understand why he's doing the things that he does. So yes, Nick Fury didn't really die, and I gotta be honest, I kind of knew that already, because in the trailer you see a shot where he's like, looks like you're giving the orders now, Captain. And that happens later in the movie, but it hadn't happened yet in the movie before he died, so I was like, he's probably not dead, because in the trailer you saw that shot and you're like, okay, so that shot's probably coming at some point, right? That probably shouldn't have been in the trailer, that one shot, because that one shot I was like, yeah, Nick Fury's not dead. Black Widow was so awesome in this movie, and one of the things I always liked about her character was the fact that she is a human, you know? She's not gonna jump off a building and just land and survive. She is a vulnerable character. She's gonna get shot and she's gonna get hurt and she could die. So that scene in the middle where she does get shot and she looks so afraid, that's one of the reasons I love that scene, because she's such a badass character and she doesn't show fear that much. It was really just that and like the scene in The Avengers where she was right next to Mark Ruffalo before he transformed into the Hulk. her character being afraid is very riveting to me because it shows that she is a human being. And there's different snippets of that throughout this film. Like where she says, I just act like I know everything. I don't actually know everything. And I was like, okay, see, that's cool to see her character actually admit that she has flaws. Now, of course, the big, humongous spoiler of the film is that this Hydra thing is growing, you know? This big Hydra organization is actually behind a large majority of S.H.I.E.L.D. Some people thought that Robert Redford was going to be the Red Skull. Some people still think that he was like possessed by the Red Skull. It's not clear in the film. I wouldn't say necessarily it was really any of those. I think that he's just a guy who liked the ideals of that and was trying to go for it again. And I really like the fact they showed Gary Shandling's character whisper "Hail Hydra" in the ear of that other agent, because that tells us that in Iron Man 2, when he was trying to get Iron Man to stop being Iron Man, he's actually a Hydra agent with all these different agendas in the background, and that actually fleshes out the Iron Man 2 film a little more. This movie not only was amazing in its own right, but it made the other films before it better. That is a humongous compliment. Anthony Mackie as Falcon was so awesome in this movie. I loved the on your left dynamic in the opening scene that had that arc at the very end. My buddy Craig Candico from fatmovieguy.com, who by the way did a pretty cool Easter egg article about this himself, which I tweeted out recently. He basically said that means that Falcon is Captain's right-hand man. Which makes sense. I'm not going to say that that's necessarily like 100% true, but it's a cool little way of looking at it for sure. Basically everything about Captain America the Winter Soldier worked for me. I loved the various Easter eggs in the film. I loved the characters. I loved the action. It was so great. The score was so good. The fact that the characters were actually fleshed out and you could actually feel like these are real people. As I said in my original review, the one scene that kind of bugged me was the computer scene where Zola was in a computer consciousness. A ton of people felt the need to inform me that that has a basis in the comics, and I know that. I'm not dumb. I know my shit, people. And just because I have one problem with the movie, it's not like you have to just focus on that. My point really is that just because a scene has a basis in the comics, it doesn't mean it necessarily works for the film that they're making. For instance, if you were watching The Dark Knight and Mr. Freeze just suddenly popped up and froze a couple people and then ran off, it'd be like, what? It just felt like it was more science fiction-y than the rest of the film. And yeah, I got comments from people saying, you can believe a guy with superhuman powers, you can believe Hulk and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yes, I can. I just thought it was random. What I didn't like about the scene was the fact that it felt like it was just so much villain exposition. It just felt like the character was like, I'm going to tell you all this, and this is all you need to know, and here's all the plot points, and I hope you have a nice day. Oh, by the way, I was stalling. Boom. The scene itself didn't work for me. You understand what I'm saying? Now, the two end credit scenes I thought were very cool. The first one was actually directed by Joss Whedon and hints at the Avengers 2. It seems like they have harnessed the power of Loki's staff, perhaps. Now, we see the twins. We see Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Very cool special effects. Now, I was kind of thinking that as this movie progressed, I was like, the end credit scene is probably going to have those two twins because they have to be set up in some way for Avengers 2. Like, there has to be some hint of them being in Avengers 2. So I figured, you know what? Since every character that was in the first Avengers was mentioned in a previous film in some way, shape, or form, they're probably going to do that for this one. And they did, and they look very cool. I'm very excited to see what those twins do in the new Avengers film. I think that Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen are both very good actors, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing their portrayals of those characters. The second one, at the very end, hints that Bucky is trying to learn about himself, which hints also that he might be a good guy soon, and that is awesome. Can you imagine the Winter Soldier on the good guy side? That is so kick-ass. I love that idea. That is so cool. In the comics, the Winter Soldier does take over for Captain America for a time, so this is actually a very interesting thing because Sebastian Stan, the guy who portrays the Winter Soldier, his contract is much longer than Chris Evans, so he could very well take over as Captain America when Chris Evans decides to retire that character, because recently he has said he doesn't really want to do any more acting after his Marvel contract is up. That's a possibility. I love these possibilities. They're awesome. I loved Captain America the Winter Soldier. I've seen it twice in theaters already. I can't wait to pick up the Blu-ray and put it with my collection. I'm really glad the same directors are returning for the Captain America 3 film. Can't wait to check that out. Can't wait to see Avengers 2. I am pumped. This movie finally is like a great Marvel standalone film, because we've had some okay ones, we've had some good ones. Iron Man was so great, but since then, this is by far the best of the standalone films, and it even exceeds the original Iron Man in my opinion. Let me know what you guys thought of the movie, your whole spoiler thoughts and everything, because there's a spoiler review, so go crazy in the comments and let me know what you guys thought. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.